If you want to learn how to gain insights you can act on and solve business problems with data, all while building a data-driven culture at your organization, sign up for Pragmatic Institute's new course, Data Science for Business Leaders. Find out more at pragmaticinstitute.com/data. Welcome to Data Chats, a podcast by Pragmatic Institute and the Data Incubator, where we tackle data topics and trends with experts, industry leaders, instructors, and alumni. I'm your host, Chris Richardson, and today I'm sitting down with Awais Bajwa, who is the founder and CEO of Ophthalytics, doing some great and important work with people around the world using machine learning and artificial intelligence. Awais, thank you so much for joining us on Data Chats. Maybe you could start by telling the audience a little bit more about what you do and the background of Ophthalytics.
Sure. So about myself, I'm in information technology for the last 20 years. I lived and worked in 4 different countries, and I speak 5 languages, by the way. So
we'll stick to English right now, I think.
Yeah, that's what I like to do now because it has more versatility as of now. So I have very technical background. I have served in different countries, as I said. So I want to talk about Ophthalytics. Do you want to know about the background, how we started that, or?
Of course. Well, I'd love to know for the audience, what it is exactly, sure, and how you're using data in particular. And then, I'd love to know a little bit more about the genesis of it as well.
Right. So Ophthalytics is an applied artificial intelligence company. So what we do is we use different types of deep learning architectures, and we use heavily different neural network architecture, especially we're focusing on CNNs, and we do have multiple other architectures in pipeline to just deep down going into the technology. Now, coming back to a high level, what is the business? So we use a deep learning in retinal disease detection. So our primary disease that we detect is diabetic retinopathy. So just to let you know, in US, there's around 37 million diabetic patient. That is around 10% of the US population. And there are around 3,000 retina specialists. So this is a ratio of 1 to 12,000 patient, one retina specialist to 12,000 patient almost. So it is nearly impossible for all retina specialists to, if they do 24 hours examination for the patients, it is even not possible. So in the statistics or the stats that we have seen in the last 10 years or 12 years in the US health departments, so around 2 million patients, 2.1 million on average every year, lose a portion of their vision and eyesight because of this disease. And around 60,000 people go blind completely because of diabetic retinopathy. So this is so dangerous disease. Now, our artificial intelligence technology detects disease, this diabetic retinopathy within 3 seconds, and it can be used in any primary care or any other diabetic center. So that's why this is game-changing technology, and we are very excited to bring that to the market.
Yeah, I mean, my aunt in Montreal had that exact issue, so it's a very personal thing for me as well, knowing what people go through. How did you get started with the business? Obviously there's the problem that you've just highlighted. How did you start to think about the solution? I'd be curious.
All right. So it's a personal story, and I want to share real quick. So both of my parents, they are now at the age of 80 plus. So they are diabetic patients. So they both are type 2 diabetes. They both have type 2 diabetes. And all the time I've seen them struggling in getting the eye exams. So I was in Atlanta. I moved from Miami to Atlanta, and they visited me first time my new house. So they were just, trying to get the eye exam the same day. So even in the US, we had a very hard time in getting the ophthalmologist appointment. It was going around 3 months down the, what the time we are looking for. And then there's a lot of insurance cost and all the stuff. So in 2017, I was heavily involved in machine learning, and computer vision was one of my specialty. Mm-hmm. And actually I was hunting for the use case. And luckily I had a doctor in my house. My wife is a physician. So then I said, I found the use case. So let's do that. So then I will develop a technology and you are my domain expert. So then that was actually the origin of our startup company. And then I think within 1 year, since I got connected with multiple, because artificial intelligence is data hungry, and especially deep learning and neural networks, they require a lot of data. So my research topic was convolutional neural networks, and I had multiple architectures in my mind. So then I tried it out, and that was the base of our startup company. And within a 1 year, we ended up with a very good, decent software. And then we started working with FDA, and it's still a process in process, but we are excited about the results right now that we have.
Yeah, I mean, and you, as you mentioned, like it's a game changer. I want to know a little bit, how did you start to collect the data? Because as you said, when you're working with artificial neural networks in particular, you need, I don't know, millions, perhaps billions of pieces of information, of data. Was that in this case somewhat easy to collect or find, or what was the challenge there?
That is a great question, and that was our greatest challenge as well. Because especially in the healthcare industry, there is a lot of regulations, and especially I would highlight that there is a need of having accessibility of the data, especially for the startup community, because there is a lot of innovation is hidden where the startup people are leveraging, want to leverage this data. So luckily, we had some connections offshore. I'm originally from Pakistan, and over there, the data regulations are not like as tough as we have here. So we had some of the connections then we got, and also I had connections in Africa. So we collected some of the data sets. Those were, available for the researchers. Then also we collected some of the data here in US. Those were available. That was available. So in short, like we initially, or for our MVP1, we had a hard time in collecting data, but we were able to do that. And then we had aggressive and modeling, labeling. We had because we have to have doctors. Artificial intelligence need. This is one of the secret that we have learned. Artificial intelligence need very, especially in supervised machine learning domain. You need to be very accurate in training. So that was another challenge we had. That apart from getting a good quality data, you need to have good quality labeling.
Yeah.
So, and training. So that was our start.
Yeah, and I think when we talk at Pragmatic, when we talk to business people who are not super well versed in computer science, I think one of the surprising things is how difficult it is to get good data, as you said, and especially if you're training, then you need good labeling. What did you learn from that experience that could help others in different domains, perhaps, when they're looking to leverage AI and then they realize, well, we don't necessarily have the data that we need to leverage it?
Yeah, so I would like to generalize a little bit, because there are different techniques in artificial intelligence. I mean, we have, and actually there are different domains also. But I want to generalize that because if we talk about traditional machine learning, there is a different perspective of the data, and there is a different best practices. Or if you talk about deep learning, that is sometimes we call the most innovative part of the AI, because it's all about data and how you train that. So in general, I would say that first of all, if we are getting to the problem, so we need to understand from the business side. I mean, what is the business requirement, and where the existing information exists. Existing information means that, I mean, data is, at end of the day, whenever we talk about information, it's all about data. Mm-hmm. But the best practice is, what is the accurate data? What is the source of truth? What is the correct data? What is the data quality, the best quality data? And also the people who are providing this data, they understand the business requirement and what we are going to achieve with this data. So these are the most fundamental things that sometimes people miss. Even very experienced people, they just jump into the data. They start doing EDA, we call it exploratory data analysis, not understanding strategic value of what they want to achieve. So you want to put a target first, and then you want to come backwards towards your business alignment with the data strategy.
Yeah. And maybe you could say a little bit more about how you tackled that specifically. I mean, not giving away necessarily trade secrets or anything, but how, when you realized what it was you wanted to achieve, how did you go about translating that? I mean, it sounds like a very startup culture that you're working with, right? So maybe it's not a huge organization, and perhaps there would be different considerations. But how did you set a target and then go about collecting and making sure that the data was as useful as possible? Yeah, sure. So I will tell you a little bit about techniques that we used, and I'm very open. Of course, this is
not a technology that we can hide. It's everywhere. And as much as we exchange the knowledge, and I'm a very open person, and I would love to exchange knowledge. I would love to get to know people who want to share their knowledge. So number one thing is that I want to talk about a little technical on the architecture side. So there is two approaches that we are leveraging. One is that we have some of the existing history that is one pipeline, and it is where we can leverage NLP. So NLP is most on the text-based, and then we have purely visual data where we have just images, and then we leverage the images. So both of the things have different strategy, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have textual-based data, you have to have a different strategy, and then on the vision-based, completely the image-based data, you have to have different strategy. But I think end of the day, most important thing is that, artificial intelligence, I would say the biggest challenge for artificial intelligence, how it will generalize in end of the day, how you generalize. I mean, you have some knowledge, you have trained some artificial intelligence model on some specific mindset, some specific knowledge, but now in the real time, when you put it in a production, when it is in, when you're looking for handling the patients in the real world, now your model need to perform. That is the real test, right? Mm-hmm. So at that time, you have to keep that in mind. Start at the time of when you are training, right? So from the deep learning side, the secret I have seen is that you have to have a diverse set of data sets, and then you have to be in active learning mode. I call it, it's a new terminology, maybe I am coining today, or maybe it's there out there, but active learning and continuous learning. Because, look at that. If you have any doctor, they have to get certifications to keep their knowledge up to date. Similarly, same thing goes for the machine learning models. There are concepts of data drift, model drift, but in short, I think active learning is a key to success and having the most generalized models. So that, I think, if I go back, I have seen that this approach really helped us, and we always try to some kind of generalize the data set. We put a lot of variations in the data set, and we try to have a bigger population handled at the start of the modeling process as well.
Yeah, how do you think about or measure success when you're setting goals, and also when you're looking to, measure whether you've met them or not? I know, if we're talking about sales, maybe people would be happy if 50% of the time they're successful, right? 50% of the people who come buy something, that's great, probably in a lot of marketing situations. Not so great if you're trying to evaluate whether somebody has a particular disease or not. 50% is horrible if that's your average. How do you set your goals, and how do you make sure that you meet them, knowing, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you'll never be absolute 100% accurate all of the time?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think just to tell you, I mean, one aspect is commercialization, but the other aspect for our company is to just help community. Mm-hmm. And recently in January, we signed a contract, not a contract, I mean, this is just an MOU to provide free services in underdeveloped countries where they don't have ophthalmologists available. So I have signed an MOU with the hospital, and we have tremendous results in the outcome of using AI. So that was a 5 months pilot, and it's finishing next month. So one of our KPI, you say, or the matrices that we put is like how many people, how many patients we will detect in a given month, and they will be treated afterwards using the latest and technology, and the like the general practitioner, we call it in Asia general practitioner, here it's called PCP, because general practitioner have no clue what's happening in the eye. That's why they are dependent on ophthalmologists. So we brought our models right in the clinical settings, and it is working perfectly. And that was one of our matrices that, I mean, we're not looking for money over there. We're looking for how many people are getting diagnosed, and then how many gets treated, and how many really had the disease. And then, honestly, if I have some results within 1 week, I mean, like if my software is diagnosing patients, those need, treatment, I'm feeling very lucky. And, that is one of our KPIs of that. Now, coming to the market, the US market and others, I think there can be different aspects. One of the things I would say to call our models as successful is the sustainability part, because sustainability for artificial intelligence models is very important. Because a lot of businesses, you can maybe push the products, but it's very shining, beautiful things. But once it gets to the production, once it gets to the market, they do not perform very well, and then it loses the shine. So you have to make sure that it is a continuous feedback coming from the customer, and then you are accommodating if there is any gap within the product performance.
Mm-hmm. And how do you do that in this case where, it sounds to me like you're not going to get customer reviews per se, right? You're not selling to people who are therefore going to rate you out of 5 or whatever. So what is the best way that you found for getting that kind of feedback, and how do you implement that when you're thinking about that kind of constant learning?
Yeah, so in our existing clinical implementation, we are having a 1 weekly rhythm, because this is our new build software that is in production now. So we are having 1 weekly rhythm. It's although it's very late for my team, because in the offshore, this is clinical implementation is in Asia. That's a very late call for us, but we are just spending a late office hours or late time. So just to wake up and early morning and then taking feedback from the customer, we are just taking very seriously, because feedback is everything for the product once you bring in the market. And then you get to know new feedback every week. You get to know okay, this is the patient, this was the condition, and it was diagnosed very good. These are, we actually have a feature, we call it as explainable AI. So we don't only diagnose that this is yes or no, but we go in a little bit more detail. So we say that, okay, where was the disease, why it was the disease. So this is a kind of feature that we are very proud of. So this is called more of explainability side. Mm-hmm. It is very helpful for the physician community as well, because they rely on the AI. It is good for the regulatory people. They also rely on the AI that, okay, this is making decision and it is telling why it is making decision. This is one of the things that really helped us. And then communicating with the patient back, like, okay, this is our decision, and that's why the report is saying this was the decision. So I think this helped a lot, and this gave us a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I'd like to dig into that a little bit, because it's something that I think, just like realizing that, okay, the data is not necessarily going to be as easy to locate as you might think at first when you're thinking about implementing AI. The other issue I found is that the explainability is often, you don't realize that explainability plays such a crucial role when you're implementing AI, and yet, as you said, it does in most cases. There are some cases where you may not need to understand, and a black box technology is going to be okay for your purposes. But as you said, it sounds like it's very important to be able to explain why you arrived at a conclusion. So first off, can you say a little bit more about what explainability means in the context of AI, and then why it's important? We'll get into why it's important after that.
Sure. So I think I want to be very sensitive to one aspect of explainability, especially in deep learning. And I want to be very loud and clear. If anyone say that it is explaining what is happening, it is not the right thing. I'm not saying black, because deep learning, how it's making a decision, it is totally a black box. But there are different ways to manipulate that decisions to make it explainable. So let me give you an example. And if you allow me, I'll go a little bit more technical.
Great, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in deep learning, there's a different ways to classify. Like, for example, if you have an X-ray, okay, so you have a chest X-ray. I'll just give it a very high level. So you have a chest X-ray. So you will have one way of classification in AI or deep learning. So that will be a classification model. That is purely classification, okay, this is a binary classification. It is yes or no, right? Now, if we want to go one way ahead of that, if we want to go a little bit more, we will have another model. It is more on the segmentation models or object detection models, or we have different approaches where we can allocate, we can go to the exact location of the chest X-ray, and we will pinpoint, okay, this is the area where the disease is. Now, how the neural networks learn, it is a process of a forward propagation and back propagation, then adjusting the weight, and then calling the activation functions. This all is very complex. even the latest research, we cannot give exactly why and what is that black box is. But we can somehow manipulate this system in a sense, like we have one classification, and then we have another segmentation, and then object detection models that will actually pinpoint what is the area of the disease is. So that actually helps a lot because, for example, if you are a physician, I'm telling you, okay, this is the image, this is the X-ray, and I think this has cancer. Okay, that's fine. Maybe it is 90% of the time it is, but the doctor will be more interested in finding out exactly, show me where it is, so that I can diagnose it better. Same if I relate to the retinal diseases. If you look at the image of the retina, we can say that the patient has a diabetic retinopathy or not. This is very beautiful. This is yes or no. But again, if we kind of go in segmentation and localization, it will be more explainable. And then we cannot call it as an explainability of deep learning, but it is just explainability that we are trying to manipulate the technologies to make it more explainable. That's what I'm talking about, explainability.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so would you, in that scenario, are we speaking about explainability as sort of related to or put into the sense of probability, or is it different? How do you talk about explainability in this sense?
Yeah, no, I think explainability a widely discussed topic in terms of artificial intelligence, and especially within deep learning domains, because deep learning is more of a black box, and there's a lot of research going on, and there is a topic also under discussion called explainable AI. So I am more focused, and my discussion was more focused towards how we can explicitly make AI explainable using our explicit techniques, but not in a sense like we are going in depth in AI and manipulating the neural networks and tweaking the activation function, or tweaking other weights and finding out what is happening. That is just a mathematics, and that is happening and no one knows how it's happened. That's why we call it sometimes artificial intelligence, deep neural networks as a black box.
Mm-hmm. So then when you are explaining it, or I mean, maybe you're not literally explaining it, but how do you present explainability in that way? Like what would you explain to somebody using your technology when it comes to explainability, knowing that you can't go into that level of detail with the deep learning?
Yeah, so I just want to be very careful in talking about explainability, because when you talk about regulatory concerns or regulatory affairs, so some regulatory things, or maybe the pipelines that they have, they don't allow to be more explainable. Because if, for example, if I am saying that my device is predicate to already some device that has already been approved, and if they are not doing a lot of explainability, we should not do explainability. But let me just try to explain. So what I wanted to say is, like, we have a version of our report that is just a textual report that will tell you, okay, this is the eye diagnosis, and that's what we think. That is one version of that, right? And then there's another version of that we will see, okay, these are the 4 quadrants of the eyes, and we think this first quadrant has these kind of conditions, and second quadrant has these kind of conditions. So for a reader, for an ophthalmologist, this is really valuable, and they can actually relate that to their own findings, and then they can see that. Now there's another another version of report that will actually go in lot more detail. It will actually pinpoint exact location is in X1, Y1, X2, Y2 location. And then we'll put a bounding box, or we will just mark that as a heat map or segmentation. There are different techniques to that it will be more general, explainable report, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. I wonder if you've come across, I mean, as you were deciding how to implement things and how to best set them up for usability for others who are not, into machine learning per se, but who want the results. Have you seen better or worse practices that you might be able to generalize for organizations, so that if they are thinking about implementing any kind of strategic AI, that, here are some issues they might want to watch out for. Here are some best practices. What are some generalizable insights that you've acquired from that?
If I talk about the general best practice or the general trend of artificial intelligence, and if I want to share some of my feedback for the organizations or individuals or team leads to how they can better embrace AI, so I want to tell you one thing very clearly, Chris, that I'm in IT industry for last 25 years almost, but I have seen a lot of technologies come and go. Artificial intelligence after the ImageNet competition in 2012, it grew exponentially. And although this is a very old technology, this is not a new technology. We all know it's a 70 years old technology, but this is the technology. This is one of a kind technology that we have in our hands right now. Now it comes with a lot of challenges. And then one of the challenge that I can say is I think we still need to figure out AI and its best use and its best adoption in multiple bigger enterprises. And the advice I want to give is that we cannot buy AI. A lot of companies try to just buy, like any new technology comes, so they can have maybe a lot of consulting forces. I have been into consulting. In my past, I worked for bigger organizations, including Ernst and Young and others. So I know that how consulting looks like. But I think for this kind of technology, I think this is more of an inside out kind of technology. So we need to understand exactly what this is, at least the basics of the technology. Even I would recommend all the high level directors, senior directors, CIOs, and all, they should know the basics and the data foundations of this AI and why we are looking for this technology and what it's going to do in the future. So that is one of the things I have seen. It helped a lot because the organizations, those are taking this technology seriously, and they are just taking approach, as I call it, as an inside out. So they train their employees, they organize some of the competition, they just provide some resources to their own employees, because end of the day, the data is within the organization. If you are having some new organization that is helping, they need to understand, they need to understand exactly a lot of things, and then they have to handshake with the people to embrace this technology. So that is one thing. Second thing is that we talk about data all the time. So number one, we talk about the inside out approach, like build some knowledge based within your organization. Now, second thing, I'm going to talk about taking data seriously. So everyone talks about data, and even I have seen a lot of the time, even in my projects, we have had a lot of meetings. Okay, we need to have good quality data and data. We talk about data all the time, but end of the day, there's a problem of the data. So data ownership, data quality, data purity, and data veracity, like how variable your data set is, because in artificial intelligence, typical typical data warehouses and the concepts of traditional data warehousing or data architecture have been changed a little bit. So now you have to see, if you're training the machine learning models, and you want to go and you want to bring your model into the production, then you have to see not only the existing business but the strategic vision, because strategically you have to see if you are because you're going to have more knowledge, more information from the customer, how that will be aligned in the future models. And I think end of the day, data is a core of the AI. The companies need to have very strong best practices and data strategy in the long run, and then align with the machine learning and data engineers and artificial intelligence experts.
Yeah, I think those are all key, as you mentioned. It's interesting that you bring up this idea in a different context, that it needs to be inside out or outside in. At Pragmatic, when we talk about marketing products and designing products, we talk about an outside in approach, because you want to go out and understand what the market needs, and then you want to design it, as opposed to designing what you think would be good and then realizing, the market doesn't necessarily need that. I wonder if there are parallels with that kind of, marketing and product management approach, where you want to go out and then you want to design it based on what you found there. Would it look similar when you want to design an AI approach? Or, as you said, would you want to start maybe from the inside? What exactly does that look like when you're trying to solve a problem? Do you say, here's the problem we're looking at, where you understand that, and then you design it there? Or I think it goes into an issue of partnership too, right? Do you look for outside in approaches when it comes to AI solutions, or inside out, meaning, well, maybe, well, go ahead. I don't want to tell you what to answer.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just explain it a little bit more because I just want to be very transparent in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I say inside out approach, it means that this technology definitely need to look into the market, what is happening, and then getting the best of the best, and then
Mm-hmm.
getting the experience, because that is one of the things I really want to highlight is that sharing the experience, sharing the knowledge with the community and getting outside in is definitely one way in, and it has to be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I meant by inside out is that you actually need to develop some of the talent inside as well.
Yeah.
And you need to have that talent inside in your organizations to be very successful in AI. But at the same time, you pointed out, and you actually, I tried to coin new terminology, you coined another terminology. So I love that. So basically, inside out and outside in, it's basically a shake hand, I would say. So I think because the pace of research, pace of development, and pace of advancements in artificial intelligence is exponential in the industry. So you cannot win alone, to be honest. This is period. So you need to have collaborations, you need to bring some experience. And then inside out means that you have the ownership of your strategy, your data strategy, your AI strategy. You own that. You have to, as an organization, you need to make sure that you understand that you are going to have your own vision. And then you have collaborations, and then you have a lot of knowledge sharing, then you have a lot of partners. This is definitely required. So I would say inside out first, and then outside in is the second approach. Yeah. And they both work hand in hand.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I see what you mean, that you do need both. Absolutely. What about, I guess, do you have advice for people who are thinking about fully embracing or utilizing AI and are, considering, do we do this in-house, or do we do this, or do we buy a product or service that is AI based? I mean, there's obviously pros and cons, but I wonder what kind of things should you be thinking about or looking out for when you're kind of weighing those decisions about buying, partnering, or just purchasing it outright?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things here. One of the thing I just want to advise, or I have been myself, I've been very careful whenever I'm talking to vendors who have the new product. So I have seen like there are traditional products, but for the last couple of years, the same products got one more labeling as AI enabled. So try to be careful about the products. I mean, just we need to understand what is the value that product is bringing, because it's a great technology, but unfortunately, there's a lot of hype also. So we need to be very careful, and you can only shield yourself, your budget, your company, only if you understand it, some level of understanding you have. Now, talking about the mindset of mindset of a company leader or an organization leadership when they're in the market looking at the products. So one thing is that artificial intelligence is somehow more specific technology. When I say like specific and personalized kind of technology, like because it is not generalizable. It's hard to generalize AI than to be personalized. So whenever anyone is selling you a product that is a good fit for your organization, you have to see what is the use case and what is your domain. What is your special thing? What is your personalization? What is your niche area that you are working on? Because any good product, it's all about knowledge. It's about information and knowledge. So any knowledge, how that knowledge can plug into your enterprise, there will be some learning. So how that learning will work, that you have to define, and then you have to define the strategic roadmap for that. So sometimes a lot of products I have seen, a lot of companies actually offer a free product, and I have seen bigger organizations, some managers make a decision, oh wow, we are getting a 6-month free. So keep in mind, if you see there is no what is the product that you are buying and there is free, so basically you are the product. So your knowledge, your data, your information, that is the money that you're paying. So that's why I think these are the few things I would highlight as a data leader or AI leader when you are trying to get into the market and talking to the vendors.
Yeah, I think those are all excellent points to think about, as and for different levels of people and different levels of knowledge when it comes to this technology. I guess if you were going to give advice on strategic business leadership, as well as people who might be more on the ground dealing with machine learning at an organization, artificial intelligence. What are two things that they could do? Maybe they're different, maybe they're the same for the different levels of people working in an organization, but what are two things they could start to do to improve the way they and their organization use or think about AI?
I think, as I said, like one thing I've already discussed before, but I'll just try to summarize one more thing. So getting to the community and getting to know what is out there and what are the different offering the AI has, or what is that latest research. Because if I'm talking about AI, then AI is a vast field. I mean, there's a lot of research happening, there's a lot of new things happening. So I think I have seen organizations hiring some of the researchers, and then there are research is happening and they are looking for immediate outcome, like okay, how we can make immediate money. So AI is more of a strategic thing. We have to see that where we have the most information, the most knowledge, the most data available in the organization, and how we can leverage that strategically. Because a lot of data is available in all organizations, but they are not in a shape where the organizations can do immediate benefits for that. So you need to work strategically and collaborate with others. Okay, what are the best approaches in AI and what is the best practices? Get to the community. It is not an isolated technology. It is more of a collaborative technology. You need to meet other people. You need to get the best practices, join the meetups, join the collaborative events, and actually get to the people who are implementing that shared knowledge, and then work strategically. That is one very important thing. The other thing I would say is, try to pick and choose the battles. In AI, there can be a lot of different options. And this is again a secret and an art. Like, what is the thing that you can have a short term versus long term? So that's why here it comes, like a lot of a product manager in AI. That is the role that has been exponentially very becoming very famous in the market in the AI domain, because artificial intelligence product manager understands the business vision of the organization. They understand what is the value of the information, the data, and the past information available in the organization. And then they pick and choose what are their battles, what are their strategic battles, what are their low-hanging fruits with the available information, and what is the level of truthness or the quality of the information they have, and what they can achieve in a short term with the data. So the definition of product management has changed dramatically in AI world, because traditional product managers were not very technical, but now in an artificial intelligence world, product managers have a very crucial role, and they need to have a solid grip of they don't need to write neural network codes all the time, but they need to understand why they're picking and choosing some business objectives, and what is the capability they have, and what is the data that will support their business initiatives. So that's why I think these are the two things that those are very important in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's, actionable and important advice. And I mean, you're doing such interesting things and important work, Awais, and I really appreciate you talking to me today about that. I wonder if people want to know more about you or follow some of your work, where should they look?
I am actually published. So if you Google my name and you put Java, my original technology was Java, so you will find a lot of terminology in Java. I'm actually open in LinkedIn. I mean, I have put some of the publications on LinkedIn. I write on Medium. Medium, I have a regular blog that I write. And I actually contributed a couple of books in the past. And I think, unfortunately, I'm not keeping a lot of information on my LinkedIn profile. I have in my list that I have to update my LinkedIn profile, but somehow
one of your many tasks, yeah.
Yeah, but I think I'm published. I have some work, and I'm very open to collaborate. Please, anyone who has any question for me or want to have a collaboration or want to collaborate, ask about my work. And by the way, I do voluntary training for some of the third world countries, data scientists. So I run a camp over the weekend for 2 hours every week. So I just spend and give direction. This is just giving back to the community. And I'm very open. I'm very open in communication, and I'm very easy to reach out to.
Well, that's excellent. And I'm sure, yeah, some of our listeners will no doubt take you up on that and look you up and contact you. So I really appreciate you talking to us today. Thank you so much, Awais.
Hey, great talking to you, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Data Chats. And to our listeners, you can harness the power of your organization's data with Pragmatic Institute's newest course, Data Science for Business Leaders. Partner with data professionals to uncover business value, make informed decisions, and solve problems. The upcoming open enrollment session of DS for BL runs from May 23rd to 24th, or speak to our sales team about scheduling a private training tailored to your team's needs. Learn more at pragmaticinstitute.com/data.